Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Coffee with Cagnetta-us. This is a plural today. We are live here in New York at the Theorist Podcast Studios. They are doing a fantastic job. Thank you, guys. But we have a very special guest. My little brother, Rob, of Heritage Restoration. And he's not here because he's my brother and we're just trying to kill time. He's here because he runs this fascinating company. And we did speak to his wife a few episodes ago about the acquisition of that company. And it got me thinking, I'm like, we have to interview you, Rob, because I'm always fascinated with your business. But first, Rob, welcome, my brother.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So where'd you grow up? In the room next door.
I had these brothers that I tell you were so awful. No, we had a great childhood. We had a lot of fun together. We did lots of dangerous and fun things in the backyard.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, it was a good time. Boxing and riding bikes.
I know. You just reminded me of the boxing. That was crazy.
It was. I didn't partake. You guys were older than me.
CTE. Anyway, not to go off on a tangent, but you wound up. First of all, I want to jump right into this business because I think it's a fascinating business, and I think it's fascinating how you got there too, because I think that's really important story for all the entrepreneurs that are out there. That sometimes you just kind of wander into things. So tell us, you went to school up in Rhode Island.
Yep. I got out of high school thinking I wanted to design buildings,
Right.
And went to Rhode Island and learned that there's a much deeper history to our architecture rather than outside of New York City, where we grew up. And so I was really a world was revealed to me to sort of show this wonderful layered history of buildings and infrastructure and all these things that sort of made the environment, the built environment, that I ended up, when I went there, I wasn't very good in architecture, but I did, they steered me towards historic preservation, which I had never heard of before. And so it just, just opened my eyes to a world that I kind of saw but never understood.
Right. So you get out of Roger Williams and you get a job with Goodwill.
Eventually, yeah, I worked, did an internship in college, and the internship led me to a position right out of school with my boss, who started a division of Goodwill Industries where we taught people with disabilities and barriers to employment the traditional trades. And we got a cooperative agreement with the Park Service, and we ended up traveling all over the East Coast and into some great national parks, and worked alongside some great craftspeople. And it sort of, again, opened my eyes to a whole nother world of the traditional crafts. And so in a very short time, I went from suburbia, Jersey, to sort of post-revolution sites in New Jersey and Civil War sites in Harper's Ferry. And it was just kind of an incredible journey in a very short time.
Right. So you're doing all this historic preservation work on some of our national monuments, and then they close it. They close the company. Not close the company.
Well,
they wind it down.
It ran its course, It
was over.
Yeah, it's over, Johnny. There wasn't a great fit. I mean, here we are, a construction company that's a construction division that's inside of a nonprofit, social service nonprofit. And we were operating like a construction company, which was not sort of their MO. So we agreed to, after about 5 years, that it was time for us to move on. And so they enabled me to take the people and all the equipment and start Heritage Restoration. So it was cool because I had the people and I had jobs and I had some equipment when I started Heritage. So it wasn't like I was starting from quote unquote scratch. And honestly, the thing it taught me the most was how to function as a business. Because as great as my college education was, it didn't necessarily teach me business.
Right.
So I with Goodwill, they were expecting forecasts, they were expecting breakdowns of hourly rates, and I never knew any of that stuff. So I got a crash course, and so Heritage sort of I had a little advantage starting Heritage with some experience.
Right. So Heritage starts and you're doing all kinds of let's talk about some of the jobs you've done. I mean, just talk about some of the crazy stuff that you guys do.
So we're fortunate to be in a very very rich architectural area where we have Newport, Rhode Island is right nearby. That we've worked on some of the mansions down there. I've worked on Doris Duke's house. I've worked on early 18th century buildings. I worked on a 1692 building that was made into a residence for the first time in 70 years. And
It was abandoned before that, right?
it was a museum, so it wasn't really functioning as a house. And the last update was in 1950,
Hmm.
and so we put in air conditioning, heating, and but we only we made 20 holes in this house and took down one wall. So it's sort of like we became my stubbornness to the cause made it so I never would do anything that was outside of restoring or preserving a house. So that fast forward to now sort of has created a niche for us that people don't call us to put in a deck or replace their windows. They're calling us to maintain and manipulate old buildings as if we were never there. So some of our best work is you can't even tell we were there, and it's sort of like our before and after pictures aren't very striking because you're like, wow, that looks the same.
But the wood is no longer rotted.
Right.
The
The house isn't
stairway
falling down.
is not falling down. It
Nope.
no longer leaks through a spiral staircase. I mean, you've worked on mills.
Yep.
You've worked on really hard logistical things like lighthouses.
Lighthouses. Yep. That was in the middle of Boston Harbor. We worked on the oldest continual light in the country, which is Boston Neck or Boston, oh, Boston Light. Anyhow, we worked on that. We worked on steeples on churches.
Right, where you have to crane down the steeple.
Yep. Yep. A lot of cranes. We built a greenhouse, a wooden greenhouse in the shop, and then brought it on site. Just lots of like we built a round window that was 7 feet across, 40 feet in the air. Yeah, so it's just, it's sort of I joke to say like as soon as we get good at something, we never do it again,
Right.
because these old houses, there's so many unique parts to them that others don't know how to do. And since we don't say no, we end up doing some really fun, crazy, crazy stuff.
I've heard that before from entrepreneurs that you don't say no too often.
Well, especially when I was starting, I did a lot more than probably not that I should have, but I think you end up doing things that are outside of your comfort, right? Just to sort of maintain and keep people busy, and then eventually when I hit like it's 24 and a half years now,
Wow.
kind of when we hit our 20-year point is when we were like, you know what? We don't have to do that anymore,
Right.
because there's someone that's calling us for something that's more within our wheelhouse, so, and now I don't have to like go to the events I mean, when I started, I would literally just drop by the historical societies or the state historic preservation office. I would, made my face known to all the people that are doing what we do, like the
Right.
nonprofits and so forth. So, at this point, it's sort of like we're that name that comes right out of their mouth.
Right.
So it's nice. It all those early years of building recognition. Sort of now I can sort of not coast on that, but
Right.
rely on that.
Well, you have a reputation for being the guy. I mean, you wrote for the Providence Journal as the fix-it guy.
For about a decade, did that. Yep.
Right.
And that was interesting because I'd never really written that others would read beyond a proposal. But that was a lot of fun. Like I definitely the octogenarians, the folks that were older knew me
Right.
very
Right.
well because they read the newspaper. So I would get these wonderful calls from folks and sort of asking really unique things about old places. And so I enjoyed that part. And this is pre, everything on the internet. So
Right.
it sort of it created a buzz for us then.
But I think it's cool that you do these things to restore these old houses. Like, I think one of the cool things is you built a shop that just does windows,
Right. Right.
Like you take these old windows that have, if ever anybody's out there, have those lead things in the window. What do you call
Oh,
them?
like stained glass, not
Yeah.
just like lead paint.
No, no, no.
Yeah,
Like
there's lead paint.
the things that go up and down in the
The weight and pulley.
yeah, the weight and pulley
Yep,
stuff.
yep. Yeah. I mean, it's really easy to find someone that'll replace those things, but it's harder to find someone to fix them.
Right.
And we now sort of occupy that sector of the market that's very robust in New England at least, and honestly, even in Florida and other parts of the country, you'll find people that do these things. And the saturation of the market really depends on how much opportunity there is. And New England and Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, there's a lot of opportunity for people to be in the restoration market. But if you go out to like Nebraska or Midwest and other places, it's going to be farther and few between because of the westward expansion happened a lot later than the early colonies. So there's a place. It's not like we're just an outlier, and there's competition. Like we
Right.
still have people that do what we do and do it cheaper or do it, so we always have to be mindful of that and be able to, make sure that we're staying above all that in the sense that I tell my crew, it's like I can defend good work, but I can't defend poor work, to a high cost. So it's really just having them sort of have them also buy into the idea that we're here for a purpose. We're here to do good work. We're here to sustain sort of these buildings. And sort of that mantra has sort of enabled us to kind of get some really, really cool opportunities.
Yeah,
I mean, the buildings we see are awesome.
the Hall of Fame, tennis Hall of Fame, the
Yep.
art museums, the churches,
And the private homes, honestly, I mean, most of our work is these private homes that aren't always for the uber rich. I mean, these are people that just live in a nice Queen Anne, which is those really nice buildings with stained glass and turrets and slate roofs, and that you see so many of them, and there's fewer people to fix that
Yeah.
stuff.
and probably sometimes you've brought things back that somebody did a bad job of fixing.
There's a lot. I mean, there is two things that'll keep us busy: is bad work and rot. And both happen. So
So in your travels, I've watched you learn a lot of things the hard way, and I think one of the lessons that you can learn is uh, that you become an expert in something. So talk about lead poisoning a little bit. Like
right.
you've literally changed the way some people are looking at the way they deal with lead in buildings.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, like you don't run away from a problem. Like, I think I don't know how it was ingrained at us young. Like, I think all three of us, like when we see an issue, it's sort of like, well, I have to help with this.
Right.
And, I think lead paint, we saw the evolution and awareness of lead paint. I mean, it was banned in 76, 77, even though we knew about it since the Romans. And
Killed themselves.
yeah, who you thought they were all that, but they were drinking out of lead goblets. So it's, I think for us, we started to see in the 90s that there was an increased awareness and legislation and lawsuits and things that were revolving around the lead industry or the paint industry. And that the response was to say, okay, well, we just need to tear all these things out to make it safe. And there's so many of these older buildings. I think what is it, like 40 or 50% of 40% of Rhode Island's housing stock was built before 1950. So you're talking about a huge amount of buildings that have potential hazards in them. So we early on we really sought to identify the ways to make it feasible for people to live with it, and to understand sort of how lead, paint becomes a hazard, and ways to reduce it. So, 20 years of us chipping away at this has led to us being in a position that the historic societies are now relying on us to help them
Right.
figure out how to make old buildings and old houses lead safe. So it's it's cool, I think, to sort of like you never know, like, as your business or as the person sort of really delves into things and gets obsessed with things over the years, you never know how it's going to pan out, right?
Right.
And this one, I feel like I just completed my capstone project where we helped create this guide to identify how lead paint is a hazard on old windows. Uh, so it's great. I mean, I think it's to have input and to create a real value beyond just the service. I
Right.
think is always I don't know. It sort of makes it a really nice way to work with people.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. I mean, let's talk about kids, and we always try to give some advice to young people listening. What's you know, you're in a quote unquote sexy business. Everybody's like, "Oh, I want to get into flipping houses or restoring houses," or like, what's the way to get into like and in the age of AI and the age of robotics, I have a funny feeling that being a good craftsman's not going away.
It'll never die. Honestly, there's always there's a need. I think there's a fundamental need, and I'm sure Mara would agree with me that the arts and craft are fundamental to how people sort of express themselves as well as sort of release, right?
Right.
And I think the trades in particular, and what we are in more of the craft side of things, are paths in that aren't always a straight line, and I think it's always interesting for me when I see people come to my company and work for us. I have really accomplished, really talented artists that working for us in different media, be it textiles or paint, hairdressers that work for us that understand color theory. I have a guy that was building yachts, and so it's you end up having people that kind of find themselves doing what we do because they find that okay, the just building stuff isn't enough. They want to sort of get into this crazy world of restoring stuff, but in that we're just some small subsection. So I think it's really important, I think, for people to keep sort of pursuing that thing that gives them joy and can give them money. For me, I was working in the field and had earned a living and bought a house, and one of the fringe benefits, better for worse, is you can fix your own house. There's just a lot of stuff that's undone in my house. But I think it's sort of it's self-preservation. Because I always have a purpose in my house if it isn't finished
There you
yet.
go. Like,
Uh,
otherwise you'd have to move out if it was
right?
done.
If it's done, it's just like, okay, there's no point for you
Yeah.
anymore. No, but it's I think the craft and the trades are sort of a wonderful way to sort of for people that don't want to follow that be it an expected path of being in a desk or being behind a computer screen.
Right.
Um, a lot of my employees sort of hate screens. Uh,
There you go.
some of them have flip phones still, not just our
Really?
dad. Yeah, they,
There's hope
so
for you flip phoners out
yeah,
there.
there's a future. So yeah, it's really I feel very fortunate to be amongst some really really incredibly talented people, and it's my job to just sort of help create the environment for them, the business environment, so we can function. That enables it to be a little easier because you don't want to be showing up at your job one day and the company folded because it can't function. So
Right.
it's hard. I think yeah, if there's anything, like, I think the best thing you can learn getting into the crafts is a bit of business. So if there's an
There you go.
opportunity to learn, be it you know credits through local universities or just working for another business a while to as they say, earn while you learn, so you don't make their mistakes.
There you go. Well, that's Rob, it's a fascinating business. Always in awe of your talent. I love you. Follow Rob on what? TikTok, on Heritage Restoration on TikTok, on Instagram
And Facebook. Yep.
and Facebook. And he's got some good videos. of how to do things. And they do own the other business, Sutherland Wells,
We do.
which we had on a couple episodes ago. Rob's choking on his water, but
I know I am choking a little bit.
but Rob, what's the best way to get in touch with Heritage? Go to the website.
Best way to reach out to us, either our phone number or our website. There's a contact us page. Even through Instagram or Facebook, you can find us as well.
You guys are out at shows. You do preservation trades.
We do.
You're out there in the world of preservation. If anybody has even a question, give you a call.
Absolutely.
Anytime. All right, Rob, thanks for coming on. Coffee
you,
with Cagnettas. The two Cagnettas. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Another great episode from New York. See you soon.